once you start doing that and getting clear with who you are and what you want, then you're releasing old stuff. You'll start to find yourself the more you spend time with yourself.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Messages from Beyond. I'm your host, Orly Alteras. Join me as we decipher signs, synchronicity, and the language of spirit. Let's begin.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you on today. Just an honor, really. I feel like, we met through a container together a couple years back and kind of kept in touch throughout this journey. And I'm so happy to have you on. I think every time you send me a little wink or a little message, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like that place where you're feeling so aligned. And I hope we get into that today, what that alignment actually is and all of it. So I'm so happy to have you on today.
Same. Like when I saw that you started your podcast finally, I, I mean, from the beginning, I cannot stop listening and I love it so much. I'm so connected with everything that you put out there. And I'm just so excited that you finally took the plunge to do it and start putting your content out because it's empowering for people. I think the things that you share and you're talking about, it makes people uncomfortable at first when they're like, I think this is true. Is this happening? And they're like unsure. But then like hearing you're sharing stories and having people share their stories, it helps empower them to believe in the unseen.
Oh my gosh. I'm getting full body chills as you're talking because thank you so much for that because I really think that what I'm wishing for the most is for others to experience the miraculous and what is beyond, and knowing that we're supported here and that there is, this beautiful energy, God, spirit that is here and we can experience it and to believe, like all about faith and believing, because I feel like over time it's been and I would love to hear your thoughts too, but like that thing that everyone has that feeling like you're talking about with religion, it's kind of been diluted over time. It's kind of, everyone has their interpretation, but in being able to connect to that feeling, that sensation that I'm understanding what you're talking about because I'm sensing it. It's all about the sensing. So
Yeah. And I like to say too to people that it's new for them, life becomes way more fun when you start exploring with that. And so if it is like, I don't know, that's kind of weird, just explore it. Just try and see what's happening. It's like opening up a whole new world that's right here in front of you that you're not even aware of until you start playing around with it.
totally. Can you share a little bit about your first experience in experiencing that sensation? If we can talk a little bit about your journey of how it started for you, how you realized there is more to life than meets the eye, that there is something here that's beyond.
Okay. Probably have many, but the first thing that came to mind was I remember when I first started practicing yoga and closing my eyes, like during Savasana, was very challenging. I don't, it was like, it was scary for some reason to close and there just
Mm.
be darkness. And one day I closed my eyes and I said, what if I looked past the darkness? What if I chose to explore through this? And that's when this like veil felt like it lifted.
Yeah.
And then from there, I started having visions and seeing things. The first thing that I was actually pregnant with my second child, Brooklyn, who then became a stillborn. I was in a yoga class, and after the class, I went up to the teacher and I said, so during Savasana, I saw like this big purple eyeball. What does that mean? And her mouth fell to the floor. She was like, you don't know what that means? And I'm in yoga teacher training. And I was like, "No." And she's like, "That means your intuition is wide open." And I was like, "Oh."
Wow.
After that, I'm like, I'm always trying to so hard to go back and see that again 'cause it was so beautiful. And what I learned through practicing, meditating, and trying to get back to that place was you will never see it when you're trying so hard. And it's the same with manifesting when you're forcing, you're trying something like it's pushing it away. Well, it's only there when you're finally come to that place of relaxation, your face, like it's almost it's like an outer body experience. And the only way you can get there is really getting into a state of relaxation.
Yeah, it's not the reaching like you're saying, because when we're reaching for it, same with receiving guidance, receiving, intuition, it's like the letting go of control. And I think the work is maybe even being able to just put yourself in that neutral state.
Hmm.
To get to that neutral state of I'm like placing ego aside to just be in a receptive place is how I describe it. It's so personal on how you can receive without reaching and wanting it so bad. Because I feel like we all want it so bad. And then, especially in really difficult times, it's like just, but that's when I lean back to like asking for signs and putting my trust in them, in God, in the universe. So for you, because I know you mentioned Brooklyn and her and losing, what came up for you with that? Because I know there's a story behind it as well of like you received signs from her, right? Like
Hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the first ones I feel like I probably got from her after the loss was at her funeral, the priest said, some children come to us for us to raise. And then, as when they move off to college and get married, and that's when they separate from us. And some come instantly to us as an angel. And right when he said that, I had a full body feeling of acceptance come over me. And I was like, I can get with that. I can see that. And it really put me on a journey of acceptance. I never got angry because I had this full acceptance of that's who she was. And because of her, it's opened up the door to that inner world that I would have never journeyed through and been exposed to. And so I know that is why she came to us as a family in our family is to lift the veil to let you see, you know, that there's angels and there's spirits and there's this non-physical world that's here to help you.
it's making me emotional because I know what it feels like also to lose. For me, it happened as well, but not in such a progressed state, and going through that grief. I think that in knowing that their spirit does move on and they have their mission and the purpose why they came even for a short time. If you can lean into that, it's really helpful, especially for someone grieving that loss. It can bring so much comfort, especially when receiving signs or, they can come through obviously speaking to us and relaying information. And that can be so much comfort for someone who's just lost someone. This is, I think, why I do the work that I do in helping people believe that they're still here. We're just learning this new language and how to speak with them and having a new way of communicating with our loved ones that we don't really learn, right? Like we don't really learn this. And I know you've you've developed all these tools and skills to help connect, I think, like Reiki and doing manifestation work. And I feel like that's all connected, right? And what do you feel for you is what you're helping people with mostly? Is like, what would you like? I mean, I know you shared a little bit, but like, what is something that you're finding in your work through the Reiki, through yoga, through,
Energy, emotional body healing. You know, when I lost her, I went through dark night of the soul. I had panic. I was diagnosed with severe depression. I lived in a state of panic, anxiety. It was really bad. And there were some dark days. And I went on a mission to figure out holistic ways to come out of that because I did try the medicine, and it would just numb me, and because I was in the yoga teacher training learning how to work through emotions and be in your body, I knew I wasn't supposed to feel that way. I knew that was a Band-Aid, and I just, like, consistently, like, researched ways to come out of off the medicine, come out of that space, and it took about 5 years, and I'll never forget the day that I was like, "I'm done with this." Like,
Wow.
I didn't and really what was helping me at that time, what I was doing was I learned about the emotional vibrational scale, and the lowest is when you're in the fear and grief, and the highest when you're appreciation and love. And so I would start to manage myself throughout the day as I would, like, notice my energetic shift just dropping for no reason. Like, I'm looking around like I have no reason to be sad. Like, where is this coming from? And I started pulling out things that I knew would lift me up, whether it
Mm.
was whatever I was listening to. I mean, I completely cut out the radio, TV, only allowed myself to listen to certain frequencies and sound healing stuff, certain people like Abraham Hicks, Gabby Bernstein, podcasts and audibles. And then my surroundings, nature. And I was driving past this red, beautiful tree. The leaves were all red. And I looked over at that tree and I just felt my energetic shift come up. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to start doing. And I'm going to start looking around for something beautiful to pull me up. And the more
Mhm.
I practice that, like now I know if I feel that shift, because it's harder to come up than it is, once you get down there.
Right.
And so, I mean, those are some of the tools that my passion is to help people with anxiety, depression through manifesting techniques. And that's one of them. I mean,
Yeah,
in order
that's
to
a really.
manifest what you want, you first have to get into a high vibe state, or
Mhm.
because you're always going to be a match for whatever you're feeling.
Right, so, like, the first place is the awareness you're saying of how you're feeling in order to get yourself to feel better, and from there, like, it's the awareness. I find that, and what you're saying is it's the awareness of where I'm at first and foremost, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And, you know, the awareness of what's creating even maybe the sensations that I'm having, if I'm feeling a certain way, is there something that's feeding that? Do you have other tools, Dawn, that use? Because what you just mentioned is, like, even the trees for you or looking outside of yourself to make it created that sensation. Do you have other tools that you have found to when you're in that depressed state to help you?
Yeah. Definitely the breath, because when we go into that fight or flight, we stop breathing.
Mhm.
And I think practicing some sort of breath technique every day to really put your nervous system in that safe place. And the anxiety, when it kicks in, when you start trying to this was for me, and it was when I started trying to make myself breathe, when I couldn't breathe, it made it worse. And so I would breathe in and open my mouth and pull my belly back, and to really I needed more air out because I was holding so much in.
Mhm.
And it's called a ha breath, and just doing that over and over until I could really calm myself. So definitely breathing, gotta move your body, and there's different techniques. If you hold your anxiety in your chest, and you do a lot of heart opening exercises. You can interlace your hands behind your back and just lift your heart, walk around in Superwoman pose, squeezing your shoulder blades back together and just breathing into your chest. Um, and when it's in your heart like that, focus on appreciation. Um, like,
Like
start
gratitude.
thinking of things you're grateful for, and start saying, I appreciate. And just even that word will the energy, that
Yeah.
word is a vibration. It'll start to Something I do in every class that I teach in yoga. You take a fist and you tap the center of your chest, and it starts awakening your vagus nerve, and it's also your spiritual heart center. And so you're awakening that energy there, and then you open the back of your hand and you feel the warmth from your hand onto your heart, and it signifies the heart to the brain that you're receiving a hug. And then you
Wow.
breathe into that as well.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that, because I think that's the hardest, I will say from my experience, is when going through something, especially, some I'm forgetting the word, but like
Grief.
conflict or grief or a struggle in your life or a crossroads, falling into the despair or the anxiety, right? And you can know, I feel for myself, like I can know already what I know, but still I have to go back to the tools, and I find that sometimes, like you were saying, when you're in that state, it's really hard to pull yourself out as opposed to noticing it when you're first starting to feel not good and like getting yourself out of it immediately. Sometimes we're just launched into this big because of life, because you lose someone all of a sudden, right? It's like
Yeah.
so even I just want to say this, even if you're doing this work already, I'm talking about myself too. It's still you have to bring yourself back and that awareness constantly.
Yeah.
So it's a constant work, like you're
Yes. I have
constantly
my techniques that I had created and
Mhm.
that I'd put into my manifestation workshops. And I would catch myself over the years, like, God, I'm starting to like, what is wrong? Why am I so off? Oh, I have not been practicing
What
what got me to where I was to be happy, all my tools and techniques. And I just go right back to it and it pulls me back up. And what that is for me is meditation, journaling, and I have a system where I help you come up with your a passion statement, a life statement, and you write it every single day. And as you're writing it, you start to get you start to receive it. And there's times where it's like, okay, I'm getting that, and that's not what I meant. That's not what I want. It helps you become really clear with what it is that you're wanting,
Mhm.
and which starts to put you, and then you write it that you're grateful for it, and then you visualize it. So that's one of the tools that I use that helps me stay where I wanna be and keeps
Yes.
me living with intention and
Be
manifesting what I want.
right, because like you're saying, you're going back to the initial intention or that thing
Otherwise,
that
you
you
become on autopilot and you
right?
start living the life that other people want you to live. Like, if you're just
Yeah,
constantly watching TV or constantly scrolling social media, you start playing into what they're trying to program you to do.
right. So let's go back a little bit, Dawn, to the process actually of manifesting, because I also, you know, what I teach actually, as well as the intuition and how to hear that intuitive voice and make that like turned up, right? As opposed to all the chatter and noise that comes in, or the like you're saying, programming outside. How I can quiet that to hear my intuition. That to me, that part of the process has to do with then receiving synchronicity. So we can hit on that in a minute, but I want to really start with the process because I'm curious to know how you see it. The way I see it first and foremost is like what you were saying with setting an intention. So let's go into a little bit, talk about manifesting and that co-creation process. And then hopefully we'll touch on like what is synchronicity, you know, and all of that, and maybe share some synchronicities as well that can happen, just to give people examples of what it actually is. What is synchronicity? What are signs? Like really. So I'd love for you to share in this process. Like for you, what is the first step? Because you mentioned the step of like feeling what I want to create. Let's, like, maybe break it down a little bit.
So, you want me to just kinda start with, like, getting someone to first step for manifesting?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think no, you've gotta know what you don't want to know what you do want. Because 'cause I'll have people come to my workshops or clients that and they're like, "I don't know what I want," and that's actually how it started for me. I had
Mhm,
always known what I wanted. When I got married, the priest told my mom, "You know what I love about her? She knows what she wants," and it was the first time I was in this place of like, "I don't know what I want." And I started writing down, like, and my yes section was like all the things that were so important to me at the time. It was family. I had worked so much that I was burnout and I needed more family time. And, so it's like I call it your top 5 passions. And so you have those. And then you start putting it into, you can go into detail, as much as detail as you want. But if you want to make something happen the quickest, you pick one thing and you just focus on one thing
Yeah.
and you write it every single day and you start receiving it starts giving you downloads and ideas. You can cut out pictures and put it in front of you as the visual part because your brain seeing that doesn't know a difference if it's real or not. And over time, you're dumping that into your subconscious. The more you're writing it, and the reason we write is because the fingers are an extension of your heart. And so you're putting your heart out on the table or onto the paper, and then your brain is seeing that too and speaking it out loud. Saying it is even more empowering. You can say it inside, but saying it outside.
It's funny, I just wanna add, like you're saying about the heart and the writing connection, and it's so interesting when I first learned to, like when I'm choosing cards, for example, or pulling a card, it was like to use your left hand because it's connected directly to your heart, and now you're making the connection for me in my mind on why we write with our left hand sometimes, what we wanna create, because I guess it's the other side of the brain, why to use your left hand? Because I've heard teachers say, like, what to use your left hand to actually write your intention down. So you
Okay, I
just
haven't
made
heard
that
that.
yeah, you just made that, like, little understanding and awareness. Yeah, so I'm like, "Okay, maybe I'll use my left hand actually to write."
Okay.
Yeah. So I just had to insert
Yes,
that,
I'm
that
gonna
just
be
came up.
remembering
Good.
that too. That just put me to another thought though that I have to share.
Yeah.
So I went to the Gabby Bernstein retreat when she came out with the book Universe Has Your Back.
Mhm.
Yes, this is a
Oh,
left-hand
wait,
story.
I'm getting yeah.
And there was a lady there that was sharing about her husband that had passed, and then the next husband had passed, and she'd lost two husbands.
Wow.
And Gabby is like, all of a sudden she turns into at this time, I didn't know she was a medium. She's like downloading them and telling her, and this was in front of hundreds of people, telling her all about them, and she's getting everything right. And I'm just like, everyone looking at this lady and looking back at Gabby, like, wow. And she said, right now, they're wanting you to receive healing. If you would like healing, raise both of your arms up. And she raised both of her arms up, and she said, and everyone in the crowd, we're going to sing or chant Rama Dasa. And I'd never heard this song. And even this was even like I do a lot of Kundalini yoga and I'd never heard this one. And then she goes, so we're all singing Rama Dasa. And then she's like, all right, if anybody else in the room wants healing, raise your hand. It felt like someone took my left hand and was holding my left hand up and just
Wow.
holding it up. I mean, there was no effort there. And it felt like a physical sensation around my wrist. And I'm just, like, in shock, and then I was like, just to compare, let me hold up my right and see if it feels different." So now I was having to put a lot of energy in holding up my right arm. And then all of a sudden, I get a visualization like it was just like I'm looking at you, so clear and real, of her Yogi Paramisha. I'm blanking out exactly how to say his name, but
Mm.
he's the author of Yogi Bihan. And he is, like, sitting across the table like this, and he says, "Get out of your own way."
Wow.
And then opened my eyes and was like, "Oh my gosh," it was crazy. So then
Wow.
I learned after that, you receive from your left and
Yeah.
you give from your
I
right.
was just
And that
gonna
was,
say
like,
that.
my first
Yeah.
experience with that and learning that.
Wow, because I think we also learn viscerally, right? You can hear a teacher say things, but until you actually experience it for yourself to know it's true. Because I know the left hand is for receiving, for example, and the right is giving, but energetically to also feel it in your hand and the sensation of what that is, that's like the connection of body and spirit completely.
Mhm.
So that's so powerful. I think that's probably where you get your Reiki, right? Where you're healing with you're receiving in your hands and you're opening up again, probably that like your vessel, right? To receive that light and then come through
Yeah.
your hands. Do you feel like you use one hand more than the other? Or is it the right hand that's more giving? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I haven't had that experience. I do have a teacher that says that she feels it more with her left, but I don't. Like, it feels the
Mhm,
same
mhm,
for me with my hands. It's more so like when my hands are on the person, I may feel like it's within on them though, like
mhm.
their part of the body that may feel
Yeah.
hot or cold or
Right. I do feel like the left is the receiving, so just interesting that we're sharing that too. So if we go back to the co-creation process, like I like to call it co-creation as well. Obviously, I've picked up that idea too from many of the teachers who talk about it, but the idea that we're co-creators, meaning we have our ideas or insight that comes through, and then kind of again letting go and knowing that the universe will create the circumstances for that thing to come to be as well. So not only are we writing the intention, and I also agree with you, Dawn, like if I'm picking one or two out of my whole list and having focus and then feeling the sensation of what it feels like already as if it's manifested, like really sitting with that feeling. And then what I've found, so now this is leading, I think, into the synchronicity. What I've found is that when I let go of how that will come to be, and I just follow the intuition from that point on, like the little nudges that I get or the little whispers that say, even, make a left turn, that's when like these magical circumstances come to be. So I'll share one synchronicity since you mentioned Gabby Bernstein. I didn't mention this on the podcast yet, but and then maybe please share some of the ways and maybe your way of interpreting what synchronicity is too. But I'll just share with Gabby Bernstein. I also went to see her in LA a couple months ago and realized that I did her manifesting challenge. I think she does it every January, right? And in that manifesting challenge, I was like, okay, if this is real and this works, and I literally wrote down that it would be as I think, I mean, to meet her one day or speak with her just as confirmation that this works, right? Anyway, I ended up going to her event. A friend invited me a couple months later. And then at the event itself, I raised my hand and I was chosen to ask a question, right? There was like 1,000 people there. And I'm standing up and I asked my question. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the manifestation. I'm speaking to her, right?
Mhm.
But it was even more than that in that moment because that evening I ended up, the event was beautiful, left the event, and there was a lot of road construction work on that road to where the theater was. And I walked my friend to her car and then she drove me to mine, but she couldn't get around to my car because of all of that construction work. So she basically dropped me off at the theater again. When she dropped me off at the theater, Gabby Bernstein had just walked out of the theater. And so I just immediately I came up to her and she said, "Don't forget this feeling. Don't forget this ever." And like so the manifestation had even come even more because that was
Yeah.
complete synchronicity. And she gave me a hug and I was like, this is right. That was just one moment for me to believe in the power of our thoughts, the universe, how they created that circumstance to just meet her in that moment. So I just wanted to share because for me also, not that I am also learning. It's not about putting people on the pedestal, but like, yes, we have our dreams, we have what we're wishing for, to know that we can experience these miraculous, huge moments in our life. And those have come to be. So I'm just saying, when you have examples of it coming to be for yourself, to share those with others, where these big, like, wishes that we have in our heart, no matter what they are, can come to be. So for you, what is synchronicity, Dawn? And like, how is it part of the process of co-creation in your mind?
Gosh, there's so many. But one of them that I have to share that just happened between me and you, right?
Yeah.
That was just
Yeah.
recently. I mean, I was just mind blown. So I was listening to your podcast and you guys were sharing stories about dates. And you said to your host or the person that you were talking with, I'm feeling that your birthday is May. And she was like, no, but that's my daughter's. And I thought, oh, well, then my birthday's May. And she goes, my daughter's birthday's May 9th. I'm like, that's my birthday. And then I look up the license plate in front of me was 9579, which my exact dates of my
Exact
birthday.
numbers. Yeah.
And so like, and just, it was so perfect to me because your podcast is on synchronicities. And there was like so many in one moment that was happening for me while listening to the podcast about that.
Oh my God. I mean, I love that. When you texted me that moment, I was like, this is insane how, again, spirit will make the connection and they will, I almost see it like they're almost like, they have these secret web that they're making the circumstances come to be. And that moment, it was with Carrie, and where she was so funny on the podcast. She's like, I'm just hearing September 20, and it's like literally a day for my birthday. She was receiving that in the moment. And then to know that hers is May 9th, and then you in that moment to be like, you're sitting I guess you're in the car, like
Yeah.
May 9th, it just touches your heart. And from there too, I mean, that's how we're meeting up today. It's like,
And I love what you said too. You were like, well, it's like a little wink from Brooklyn because it was her daughter's birthday date, but my
exactly,
birthday.
exactly. I knew it was actually, Dawn. I felt it throughout my body. I knew that was a wink from her to you, because there's a reason why that because Kara too, in sharing how special her daughter was to come into this life and to receive that. And so I knew it's
Yep.
that extra sensation, that's where spirit is. It's the understanding of the senses and really tapping into the sixth sense. And I just knew that 100% was her saying hi to you, right?
Yeah.
Have you received other signs from her, from Brooklyn?
One of my favorites is a gift she's actually gifted me was I'd never cried over feeling so grateful before until her. Like, she taught me how to really deeply appreciate. She taught me how to receive. Because when she passed, everyone was giving, and I could not accept. It was like I was always felt like if someone gives me something, I got to give back, and I've always had that energetic feeling of exchange within me. But I didn't have that energy, and then I was carrying guilt over not being able to give people back as they would give me gifts. And finally, I got to a place where one of my girlfriends said, "Dawn, people want to give to you, and they want to do this for you." And it put me in a place of like, okay, like I'll start receiving more. And I mean, I've still had to do work on that. I did a lot this past year.
Mm.
One day I was driving past her graveyard and the song came on by Dido. Like, I just want to, it's a gratitude song. I can't remember how it goes, but I, it was like one more day to be with you, something, something. And I just started bawling, crying.
Mhm.
And I was like, the appreciation I have for her of all the things she's gifted me, even though without a physical body.
Mhm.
And it was just that for me, that was like a synchronous. I'm passing by her graveyard when that song came on.
Yeah,
I was
the
going to
words
teach
in
yoga.
that
I have
moment.
to pass by there, the certain place I go teach yoga at. And the timing of that synchronicity was like, that was from her in that
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah. I think what I haven't talked about yet, and you're bringing that up, and it's how synchronicity oftentimes will come together with something else. So, like, you'll see the sign, but either you'll get an extra sensation, but it will have something else on top of it. So, like you were saying, you were listening to the podcast, for example, and you heard the birth date, but then to see the birth date in front of you, it's like, don't ignore it. It's like, I'm here, right? It
Yeah.
comes in like, just so
It's
that you
also,
don't
like you
have to
said, it wasn't
doubt.
about me. It wasn't like,
Right.
yes, that was my birthday, but it wasn't about me. It was about her saying
Yes.
hello.
Yes. It was just like, paying attention, I'm here, right? Like,
Uh,
or if you're just exactly in that moment in time driving by, but then the words are in that perfect timing. There's something about the divine timing. Again, I'm using that as an example of just like exiting the theater, and in that moment, she's walking out, or like the way that synchronicity happens is
yeah, we could have been
miraculous.
1 minute later and missed her, but that's not
Right,
how it played out. Yeah.
right, right. Um, there's so many examples. Like I tend to repeat the same ones of like going and sitting on the bench, and in that moment, the principal of the school driving by, I share that on the podcast in that moment again, because you listen to the intuition. So for you, is intuition part of the co-creation process too, as well, or do you
Yeah. I mean, the intuition, like we were talking about earlier, like following the breadcrumbs.
follow
A
the
recent one for
breadcrumbs?
me was, working on building a website, and every page I ever try to do, like it takes me forever. And There was one day I left from teaching, I'm driving through Starbucks, I saw I don't it was like several digits in a row on a license plate tag. Like, I don't remember what numbers there were, but you recognize that stuff, and those are reminders, and you can go look them up and really try to read deeper into what it is, and then eventually you'll start having that stuff memorized. But I received a download in that instance, like, "Go home and build your Reiki website page." I did it within 11 to 3 o'clock. I just did it so quickly, and it was effortless, and it was fun, where all my other pages I've had to either hire somebody to do, or it's taken me there's some I still haven't done, like, I'm working on one right now, manifesting through the chakras. It's taken me forever. Where that one just came, and it's like
Instantly.
yeah, and I had 2 clients, like, I had people wanting to learn Reiki from me, and that's where it came from. It was, like, starting to have people, like, ask me to teach them,
Mhm.
and then I got the message to go build the page.
Right.
I did it, and it went so quickly. It's like
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Right, so it's like the following of what's given if, you know, saying yes, right, to when the
Mhm.
opportunity shows up. It's like jumping up on the opportunity and saying yes. I love that so much. What do you find holds people back? I wrote this down as a question, Dawn. Like, what have you found through this work that holds people back from actually, you know, being in their light, creating what they want, or following their heart, manifesting, you could say?
Yeah, I think people pleasing and n not taking time to really drop into your inner self and connect with your highest self. So once you start doing that and getting clear with who you are and what you want, then you're releasing old stuff. You're able to, like, break some boundaries to really go into you'll start to find yourself. The more you spend time with yourself, find what you want. When you don't know,
Yeah.
that's when you're just living on that autopilot and programmed.
Right. Do you have any tool on getting clear? Like for someone who's coming in is like, I don't know. I mean, you've
Yep.
mentioned journaling, but what tool can get people to get clear on what it is they actually, what their heart wants, what they're
On
wishing for?
Yeah, I would say step 1 is find if it's just 5 minutes to, like, be alone
Mhm.
and no music, no nothing, like, just silence and sit with whatever comes up.
Mhm.
And then writing down, like, spending time, what is it that I want? And if you still can't answer that, then what do I know that I'm a no for?
Mhm. Right.
And
Well,
sometimes I find people that when they don't when they're in a position, like, say it's an opportunity or something, and they're like, I don't know what to do." Well, ask yourself right now, well, if you say yes, where does that emotion, that word go into your body?
yeah.
You're like,
Um,
"No."
right.
Where does that emotional word go into your body? And then ask yourself, "Should I do this?" And wherever you feel the sensation in your body, like for me, a yes is in my belly, I get butterflies. A
Mhm.
no, my chest. And some people are the opposite. So you've
Yeah.
got to like start exploring with your own body and where are you triggered and where does,
Yeah.
where does something open up for you.
Yeah, what a yes is and what a no is. This is so good because again, it's like what you're saying. I wrote it down and then you said it again. It's like the working with the emotions. How does it make me feel? Like even an idea, would that get me excited? If not, that's how I cross off also some of the things. Like if I have a lot of ideas and I want to hone in on the two things, it's like which one is going to excite me the most or create the most excitement for me right now? And then also with, like you were saying, the butterflies, for me, what's been coming up a lot is like the fear almost can sometimes feel the same as the excitement and the butterfly feeling. And then knowing if it's a yes, still, what I'm finding is sometimes the fear can be very overwhelming. And I know that spirit also wants us to take a leap of faith, right? And jump into the water when it's like a little bit beyond where I think I can do. But I've also know of like what's called red light synchronicities. But I want to hear maybe your thoughts on this. Because for me, when I'm overwhelmed with fear, I still can't. It's almost like fight or flight. I just can't do it. And it feels too big for me. But what I've learned is that red light synchronicity could be an opportunity that shows up for you, and it has all the elements of what you're wishing for, and it's showing you in a sense, this is available to you, this is where you're headed, perhaps not just yet. If it's too overwhelming, for example, and that I'm talking about opportunities that show up in your on your path.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think Gabby Bernstein also talks about driftwood, like if you're wanting to get pregnant, you really want it, and then you see a bunch of pregnant women around, it's just a sign that it's like it's on its way to you. So I just
Mm.
wanted to share as that another way, because there's something about fear and fear of taking that next step. And for me, it's been my journey of stepping into my fears a little bit more.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So any thoughts on that or tools too for
Yeah, what I've learned is that fear is your ego trying to keep you safe because all it wants to stay the same. Your ego just wants to stay the same, do the same thing. And then when you start stepping out of that because it's so different, if it's extremely different than what your nervous system is caught up to or what your normal day to day is, then it's going to be even stronger. And
Mhm.
so a lot of times you've just got to like visualizing it, writing it, practicing yourself over and over doing
Doing
it.
it in advance?
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
then
good.
that's how you're energetic, you become the energetic match. You start just
Right.
visualizing it, pretending that it's already done. And it's done so many times that when it's there and it's presented, you're not scared anymore.
I love that
So that's what
because
some
our
people do
mind,
when they're
yeah,
scared and it's okay, they fight through some weight
because
until they're caught up.
yes. Thank you so much for, like, making that connection. So I know for myself, the mind can't like you said before, the mind can't tell the difference between what's reality and what's in our imagination, and I know there's this exercise where you actually this is like a Tony Robbins exercise when
Yeah.
I first started with, like, reaching your hand and going to the back, but if you visualize it in advance, your hand will go farther, actually. So I'm not explaining the whole exercise right now, but it's that for me was where my body understood how my mind, if I go farther in my mind, I will go farther in my reality. So that's powerful to actually, it's almost like creating it in advance. So then when I reach that thing that I'm fearful of, it won't be so scary. So thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great way of here it goes, drops again. You like dropped the I dropped a huge piece of insight to another way of looking at it. This is so good. I'm so happy you're sharing this because I know we're both in this world, right? And experiencing these miracles and this energy and being able to be receivers, again, opening up your vessel to receive, that was a huge thing for me to actually accept when people say something nice, to actually open myself up to be, thank you. I received that. And then seeing how the universe can give even more. It's like, so that for me has also been part of the process and saying to others, perhaps, allow yourself to receive. Um,
Yeah,
awesome.
one example I had that happened to me recently was we were traveling and I got up and meditated that morning and I was booked a regular seat, but I was like, I want to manifest an upgrade. I want to manifest first class. And so I'm, practicing that visualization. I wrote it down that I was grateful for it. And we get to the airport and I wasn't even thinking about it. We're getting on the plane. And my husband goes, I just got upgraded to first class. And I was like, I manifested that for you. I worked on that this morning. And he was like, you did? Well, you can have it since you manifested it. And
Oh,
I could have totally said, and this is something I'd been practicing is the receiving. I could have said, no, that's yours. If I would have done that, now that I know how the energy works, the universe, that's telling the universe, no, I really didn't want that. I just wanted it a little bit. And so, no, thank you. So I received it and gratefully said, thank you.
yeah. Oh,
You know,
that's so good. That's so good.
Does it continue being a match for what I'm wanting, right?
We talked about how to get a little bit out of the state of fear, the key principles you found in manifesting. Is there anything else you think that we're not mentioning too, Dawn, on creating your heart's desires?
So I went through 6 months of training with the number one manifestation coach, Reagan Healier, just finished
Mm,
in September, and some of the things I got from her was you can use frequencies, like, say if you are trying to manifest health, you're going through an illness, you could go onto Spotify or Apple, like, just some kind of music and put in "Hurts for healing." And just play that sound throughout your home, or and it could be here's an example with that one, is my son came in, he's 18, he was like, "Hey, mom, my knee hurts. Will you do some Reiki on it?" And I was like I get so excited because it's probably only the 3rd time he's ever asked me to do this. And I was like, "Oh, yeah," and I'm getting all my tools out. So I got all my bowls and I Googled frequency for knee pain healing, and I played that while I did the Reiki and I did my sound bowls. And whenever I told him, I was like, "Don't tell me which knee," because I wanted to, like, prove to me and him, like, how this works. So I'm placing my hands on his knees, and one knee, it literally like, he fell asleep, and it was vibrating. Like,
mm.
I pulled up my phone trying to video
Wow.
it for him because it was so intense that I was in shock what was happening. And I finished his knees, and then I did his feet, and then afterwards, he was like, "So which one?" And I was like, "It was your left." And he was like, "Yes." And he was like, Anything else?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Well, my foot was hurting too." And I was like, "Okay, well, I did." There was, like, nothing, like, I didn't feel any energy on your foot. So I could see where that would be, you know? And so that helped him. I don't know, I kinda switched from manifesting, but you can use the sounds like that to manifest as well when you're meditating or just on a drive and you wanna think about that, use a
Mm,
frequency. Also, I've done a lot of, like, unblocking of past stuff
mm,
by going inward, looking at the situation that one of mine was being seen, and when was the first time that I was put in a situation that it dropped me into a childhood memory of being laughed at really bad, and I went back and replayed that scene over and over until I'd released the feeling, and what I did was, in that moment of everyone was pointing and laughing, I started doing cartwheels and being silly and being fun, and a lot of your manifesting the things that you're not is because of old traumas within you that you have not dealt with and released and healed.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, definitely. Totally has to do with manifesting because if you want to manifest better health, whether that be with your knee and you find that frequency, then you're manifesting that better health. It also talks about, I think, what I love, and maybe we'll mention this too, because I haven't gotten into this as well as like the rice experiment and just energy and how it affects us, right? And the words, that's the power of the word too, also in creating. But for example, with the rice experiment, when speaking loving words to one rice as opposed to all these hateful words to the other, and to see what comes out, right, from each of them, um, those healing frequencies. And it's all frequency, even in connecting with spirit, you're raising your vibration, you're getting to this frequency that you're able to hear them, is how I like to describe it too. So you're able to connect with, again, that place that's beyond where you can have that conversation. It's like energy travels. So,
Yeah. And
um,
those that are listening that like the science of things and what we're talking about, the power of the word and sound, you can go on YouTube and look up. There's sound videos where there's sand and there's people ahming and it makes a certain shape. Like I have a necklace with that shape on it. Each sound, even like with the bowl, whatever sound, it's all creating shapes. So this is happening in our bodies as
mhm.
well. Every word that we speak, every sound that we're listening to, voices, like it creates these different patterns and shapes in our body.
Yeah, so that's perhaps even another tool, Dawn, when I'm feeling out of alignment literally, or in stress mode, or I'm anxious, I'm nervous, actually taking something external like music or a frequency, if I can be close to it, that's why the sound bowl healings are so powerful because your whole body experiences that vibration and it kind of can bring you back into a frequency of whether that be in right health, feeling better. I really believe that. I also think that we each vibrate at a different frequency. We're each almost like instruments. We're tuned differently. And so if you're able, I'm not saying that listening to her, that hertz frequency, it's like definitely tuning us. But I think with science, we're going to be even more clear on the frequency that's like your matching frequency.
Mhm.
'Cause I know we attune each other, that's for sure, like, if you're playing that note, again, that's another thing, you play that note, it'll play, right? The guitar string will play
Yeah.
on the next guitar next to it. Yeah, I guess my wish is that we all vibrate at that higher frequency
Yeah.
too, where we all can feel better,
Yeah,
literally.
one of the ways Reagan explained it too is, like, imagine when you are like, you watch an orchestra, when one instrument is out of tune, the way it sounds, that's happening in our bodies. When there's
Yeah,
one thing off, then we're out of
right,
tune.
right. And so there are ways to get back in tune. I think even with aligning with your chakras is one way and seeing which
Mm.
chakra is out of alignment, right?
Yep.
Um, Thank you so much, Dawn. I feel like I feel like we can talk for
I
hours.
know. Every time we talk, it feels
I
that way.
know. I just want to talk for hours. I know we didn't mention too much the spirit world, but it's all connected. It's all connected because, again, I do feel like the signs that we receive from our loved ones, again, when we're in moments of like, I don't know what to do, and trusting that the answers will be given, and they can be given from your loved ones and they can be given from your guides. That's another place of like exploration for people to actually explore and stay curious. I think for me, the biggest thing has been to keep myself curious and not close myself off so that I can continue believing in what's available, possible. And I also know that the more you believe, the more, what you change your perception, the more you can experience those miracles if you
Mhm.
keep believing. So I think that's part of the work too,
Yeah.
on how do we expand our um, ability to believe
Yeah.
more.
Yes. That's great.
Um,
Is I read the autobiography of Albert Einstein.
mhm.
And the biggest it was like 12-hour book, it was so long, maybe even longer. The biggest thing I got was that he just stayed curious. It's all it was, like, he's smart, but it was because he was so open-minded and so curious and just kept looking and reaching, asking more questions, and, we get to live the benefits of his curiosity.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. Yeah. Well, I actually brought my cards today. I feel like maybe we could pull a card for today
Yes.
just for
Thank
I'm
you,
so
yeah.
grateful. I do want to say, Dawn, you have this ability. To me, it's like almost like butter to, because you've been doing this work for a long time as well, to make everything make sense. Every word you're saying, and also your focus on being of service is so powerful. It's so felt that your concern is really for others. I just want to share that. And as we each go on our own journey, I'm obviously going through my own journey. It's so felt with you that you're going through your journey, but you're really here to be of service. I just have to share that. And obviously, I'll add also where people can find you and everything, but it's really felt, Dawn, that this is like
Mhm.
the work you've chosen and why you're doing what you're doing. And it's also really humbling. Like it's coming from such a loving place, and it's very much felt.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I think too that when we're really able to connect to that place of, I have my wishes, but there's also a greater reason or of being of service. I should mention that too, and it's for the greatest good of all concerned, where it's really fine tuning that as well. And one teacher recently shared a mantra with me. I'll share it and I'll shuffle the cards, but almost to the point where it's like, I can't, but they can, and I will let them. Them meaning God or your guides, the universe is like, I can't, but they can, and I will let them. And that's also about like letting go of the control and being put in a place, but of to be of service, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I'll just ask what we need to know today. But
Okay. I'm so excited.
oh my gosh, it says drop your shield.
Okay.
Um, for me, this is huge. I mean, my whole morning is thinking these thoughts about the shield and protective shield and right, dropping the shield, being seen, being able to share your heart. I think for you, like to your throat chakra, too, Dawn, is so in helping others speak their truth out. I mean, you're helping myself through the podcast too, is to speak my truth out. So I'm very grateful for that too. But in dropping your shields, I'll just read the card as well. Because those are protective shields too. It's what we put up to protect ourselves, to not be seen or not be
Mhm.
heard. Why, again, that's the inner child work. Like, where did that come from? Why am I afraid? What do I allow to come in? So drop any shields. This is for everyone listening. Will be the message whenever you hear it. It's the right message. Drop any shields of shame, resistance, and fear that are standing between you and your chances of enjoyment and fun. Know that you don't need to hide who you are or the gifts that you have. You were born to shine. The protection guardian is a feminine version of Archangel Michael. She's a fierce, protective, yet loving warrior angel who carries an indestructible shield of power and protection and will come to all who call on her. She will help you drop your fear-based shields and move into a loving, protective force field that will keep you safe but will allow your gifts to shine out. Although she's here to guard you from lower energies, she's completely relaxed, serene, and confident because she trusts that love will always prevail. You may have encountered shame or embarrassment in your past, but that is not your present. Angels are drawing close at this time to help you move beyond any limiting thoughts, emotions, and patterns that may be making you feel unsafe. Know that angelic protection is swirling around you at this moment and will help you move forward in a more fearless way. Call on your guides for help in changing your frequency so you can feel safe and protected at this time. You are stronger than you think, and your angels and ancestor guides are here to help you realize this now.
So on point.
We were just talking about it
Changing your
too.
frequency.
I know we were just talking about it, but I also feel, Dawn, that there's angel in human form. I'm gonna cry. Like there's angels in human form that come. And I will say, even that moment you texted me that day was just a reminder to keep going, keep moving, because we're all going through things. And so for me, the protection guardian is like, it's even you. It's to be able to see that the angels and guides, do come, the messages come in human form as well. So that's a
Yeah.
reminder for everyone. So I'm very grateful for you for being here and helping me drop into this quiet place.
Yes. No, I always say the same thing. I've had so many people that through my healing journey that I was like, I just feel like you're an angel on earth because of your service. I show up for your classes and the way it's helping me just feels like angel on earth in human form.
Yeah. So, well, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day,
You too.
and we'll talk again soon. And I'll put everything in the show notes as well. Donna, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your light.
Thank you.